Welcome to Rural Reboot. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and today I'm joined with Ian Sturgeon from Sturgeon Creatives. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing great. I am looking forward to this conversation. We always pass each other in the hallways, and we have like little brief moments where I'll hop into your office or you'll hop into mine, and it's like, oh, hey, what do you think about this thing? So I'm super excited to get into the weeds of it. But for people who don't know, who is this Ian Sturgeon guy?
I am the owner of Sturgeon Creative. That's what I've got my hands in currently. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had a lot of different companies in my life and have done a lot of different things. Right now I'm working on a creative media company, mostly focusing on social media.
You're working on a lot of fun, different projects, which is always great. There's definitely a kindred spirit there where like we'll be working on similar projects, maybe not at the same time, but like we'll cross paths of like similar problems, which is always, it's good. That's what I love too about this community that we have here is like you may be running up against a wall and I can help, and then I've been like I cannot, what's going on here, and I can go to you and we can have like this discussion, which is always good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when you have people that are in slightly different verticals, there's tends to be a lot of overlap on the ways that you can help each other and do each other a favor, and I don't like being at my house, and it's even more of a bonus if I'm around other like-minded people. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's always it's just a different vibe, as I'll put it. Just the like I've run into people at the water fountain that we have here to fill up our water bottles, and it's like, oh, hey, I'm having this issue, and let's go deep into that while we have 5 minutes to spare, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you also have like a very deep history we were talking about before we clicked record, but like this variety of positions, a variety of projects that you've worked on in the past. You've sold several companies. Most recently, you sold like 3 companies in the span of a year. And I think that may be a world record somewhere.
Yeah. Mostly I just I scratch my own itch a lot, so I start companies that I think are interesting. And so sometimes I get interested in something else before that grows to where I want it, and so I'll offload it and just switch gears. But yeah, I've done a lot of different things in my life. And the cool thing is, the more I do, the more my experience builds on itself. So the more you can just kind of do everything. I mean, that may sound arrogant, but you just have more experience because you've had to wear all the hats so many different times. Yeah.
Wait a second. Let me talk to my manager. You put on the manager hat. Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, for sure.
Talking to that, what was some of the stuff that really got you into the idea of entrepreneurship? Like we're in rural right now, but you've also lived in a variety of other places. But what really started that itch to kind of chase down these rabbits?
So if you want to go really far back, I'm the third kid in the birth order of my brothers. And so I grew up having like this I'll show you attitude, right? Which I think it lends itself well to the entrepreneurial world, right?
And told me I can't do that? Okay, buddy, get ready.
Yeah, so I remember being a kid and wanting to be a stockbroker because I knew that they sort of, in my mind, they like controlled their own destiny. They spent the money where they thought they would get a return and things like that. So that was sort of my first, like, that would have been like a solopreneur mindset of like, that would be really cool. I want to like show up to school in a limousine, And then I watched the movie Howard Stern, Private Parts, when I was a kid, and very different time in my life. I'm a much different person now, but I thought to myself, I'm going to be the next shock jock. I want to be like on the air and be this big radio star. And so I went to school for that, and then quickly discovered that not only was I not good at being on the air, I also hated it because I couldn't take back mistakes and I couldn't fix things. Yeah. They were out there. So that led me to the production room, and I was too poor to buy my own sound effects and music beds, so I started making them myself. And I just started posting them on the internet, and this was way back in the internet days, so you didn't have real great analytics. And somehow I stumbled on part of this site where I saw that thousands of people were downloading the stuff that I was posting, and I thought, oh my gosh, like that's a business, you know. If I could just charge for these little sound effects and music beds. So that was my first entry into the entrepreneurial world. And I was like totally hooked to be able to, especially it was a digital product, so you can scale it, you can sell it over and over, you're never going to run out of it, you know, all those things. And so I loved the production room. I loved to be able to control things before I put it out into the world. And I was doing e-commerce essentially before I even knew what e-commerce was, to just posting things on the internet and charging people money for it. So yeah.
That's so awesome. And I love that idea of, oh, hey, I made this thing to help myself. And then all of a sudden other people need that thing too. Yeah. And, oh, hey, I could charge money for this. And then you did. Yeah. So a lot of people like, oh, I could charge money for this. And then that's where it stops. Right. And that's what I really appreciate about you as an individual. Like you have all these ideas, and then you'll take them to the point where it's like, this is viable. Like we're doing this, and it's really awesome.
Yeah. And I think that for me, I've worked on projects, and this is going to sound crazy, where I had like one or two people actually pay money for the project. And that's a success to me. I'm like, I proved that I can go to 0 to 1 with this, and I'm cool with that. Like that scratches my entrepreneurial itch. I can move on with my life. I proved that idea would work. And the rest of it is like, where are you going to sink your effort? How are you going to grow it? But yeah, it's that's what really lights me up, is the idea stage where it's like, I wonder if that would work, you know? Yeah. Like, I wonder if this, you know, this guy with very little radio experience can go build something in a remodeled garden shed with a dial-up connection and upload it to the internet and sell it, you know, like, and so getting to those obviously this was a long time ago. This was not last week. We have satellite internet where I live now, but anyway, yeah, I just love that. And so wherever that leads me, if I can put something creative into the world, and sell something to a stranger, that's what scratches my itch. So
what are some of the ways that you have, maybe you have like a variety of projects? You're like, okay, I could go these different directions. What is it for you that says, okay, this is a viable business? Maybe I have sold a couple things. Okay, I've proved that it's going to work. What is the decision making behind, okay, I've proved that it's going to work, but is it something that I can take further? What is that kind of thought process for you?
Yeah. And I think probably those are the instances where I end up selling things. So also I founded our town's first CrossFit style gym back in the day. And so I honestly did that because I just wanted a place to work out. I literally tried to talk other people into starting it. I'm like, we need one of these, you know? And so I built up this gym, and then it's like, all of a sudden you didn't want a job at a gym, you know, you didn't really even want to be a trainer. And so those are the times where I'm like, oh, okay, this doesn't really fit what I really want out of life, you know? So I'm going to give this to somebody who's going to do a really good job, you know, of it. But then, you know, and so I think I'm getting better as I get older to design, or like to go into things with the end in mind. Like, yes, I'm into this, but do I really want to do my day-to-day to look like that? Yeah. You know, so there were times, and, you know, when you're starting a company, sometimes you have to wear all the hats, and sometimes you are the fulfillment guy, you are the this, that. In my last company, there were times it was an e-commerce company that sold jump ropes to CrossFitters. And so there were times where I'm like building jump ropes, and I'm like, how did I give myself a job in a jump rope factory? You know, like that wasn't really what, you know, that wasn't scratching my itch anymore, you know? And so, but yeah, I think I'm getting better at going after something, having had those experiences of being like, okay, if this is successful, this is what my day-to-day is going to look like. And that's going to feel good, you know, versus I wonder if that'll work. And then 6 months down the road, you're like, yeah, it worked. And now
dang it, it worked too well.
Yeah, now I'm miserable because I didn't think of what my day-to-day role was going to be in the company. So
I think that's an important aspect of entrepreneurship too. Of like, we all have, at least a lot of the people in this entrepreneur emergent FEDC project, like this is a lot of people are the people that, hey, I'm going to try out this thing. I'm going to see if it works. It may work, it may not, but we're willing to take that time and give it a shot. Mm-hmm. Take the failure, take the thing like, okay, hey, maybe it was successful, but I failed in how my expectations were for it, or maybe it did fail. And now we're going to switch gears and take that learning and move it into the next thing. So I think it's an important process too, because a lot of us are passion projects. I mean, I dearly, dearly relate to the idea of how you started the CrossFit. That's how I started my first podcast. Is like, I want a podcast that does this thing. I couldn't find it, so I made it.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, and that's sort of the quickest path to entrepreneurship, right? Is seeing something that doesn't exist and making it happen. So in the scratch your own itch is a really easy hack to be able to like, what should I do? Because you've got a problem. Yeah. You're
the best person to understand that problem.
Yeah. And then you speak the language, right? Because then you're passionate enough that you know everything about it, so you're not having to learn something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you touched a little bit on it. You had the radio experience. You had the experience with your first entrepreneurial journey. You had this soundbite business, specifically geared towards radio stations and podcasters. What was next for you? You stumbled upon this idea. It was successful. How do you go from that to jump ropes to now you're a creative marketing agency?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, like experience just keeps on building on itself as you get older. And so I never thought when I went into radio that it was going to be like my first exposure with really working with computers. It's like, of course it was, but I didn't think about that. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then, obviously the sound designs and the production stuff came out of, I don't actually like this aspect of radio. So I started building things there, which made me have to write things to put on the internet, to sell stuff. Right. And so then, I opened a CrossFit gym, and that was sort of a diversion. But around that same time, I got a job with another e-commerce company in our town doing their copywriting and video editing, because video editing was just a different shaped ball. It was the same as editing audio. It's just you're lining it up with video now, and like I never thought to myself, and when I was in radio, I never thought to myself, I'm becoming a writer, but you're writing every single day for voiceover artists and stuff like that. So things just kept on stacking on each other. It's like, okay, now I have e-commerce experience. Okay, now I'm creating Facebook ads, and I write for those, and I can edit video for those, and I can, so it's like one thing after another until you have this skill set that's really well rounded and can apply itself to basically any creative media that you want to put on the internet now. I can do most of the aspects of it.
So what are some of the problems early on that you saw with that side of things to where you are? Let's get in a little bit on kind of the Sturgeon creative side of things. You launch a couple startups, you are able to sell those and go to the next thing. With Sturgeon Creative, this is a very interesting idea, because you did find, like, I'm really good at making ideas and taking them to this next step. How does that kind of incorporate with what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I think right now with Sturgeon Creative, it's I'm trying to decide whether I go after a local market or a larger market. I think our local area is getting just big enough that there's enough people who have a budget to throw at marketing that makes sense. And because of some Facebook changes, things are a little weird now. So the people who are going to be able to afford to to advertise on Facebook are large companies and small companies. The middle ground is sort of that's a really competitive, tough place to be.
Yeah.
A local company, it's the way I explain it is it can be like TV on your phone, right? Where you just if it makes sense to broadcast a message about your company, kind of the same way a television station used to, then you can do really well with Facebook ads because it's video, it's right there, it's clickable, there's a way to contact somebody. It makes all the sense in the world, and you can still afford to target a really small geographic area.
Because you could target that town,
right?
And it's still much smaller than if you wanted to target Los Angeles.
Right, exactly. And so I think that because of that, it's sort of a window in time where a smaller marketing agency makes a lot of sense. And, us plus maybe Pueblo West in that area, like it makes a lot of sense to do small local advertising because it's affordable and it's effective. And, there's less competition in the middle now where mid-sized e-commerce companies used to be just dumping money on Facebook. And now they're pulling back because of the changes on iOS 14, which I won't bore the audience with unless you want me to. So.
That's an interesting part of it too, of the idea of marketing. Because you can market other people, but you also need to market yourself and your services and your abilities and your skills. What are some of the things that you may have initially kind of like dive deep into this? We had a conversation early on 3 years ago, something like that, on this one idea, dollar a day ads, and taking that and seeing how things worked now in this new landscape after COVID. And within that one, like maybe 30-minute meeting, I had already implemented some of the ideas that you had put forward. And I got a fashion designer in Denver that led to a variety of projects and was going to lead to like New York Fashion Week and Paris Fashion Week, but good old COVID came in and destroyed that.
Yeah.
But like just that kind of thing of this very strategic marketing, because I think that's what people need now.
Yeah, and I think most people are overwhelmed with getting their feet wet in it. I mean, the same reason I started making sound effects and music beds was the same reason I got into Facebook ads for myself, because I couldn't afford to let anybody else do it for me. So I had to just get in the back end of Facebook and start grappling with all these settings and all this stuff, and figuring stuff out. But it's especially in a local market, if you do the hard work of getting into the back end of Facebook and looking at all the ways that you can target people in your neck of the woods, most people can handle it. And so, like I can consult with those people and show them how to handle it.
Yeah.
Or if they're like, this all sounds great, but I'm never going to touch it, you do it, I can also handle that. So, I think there's probably a good mix of those people that are some that are pretty web savvy and some that, and they just need just like a little bit more education. Plus some that are just like, no, you do it.
I think we had another discussion on the Reboot podcast with Kat Fox Designs and what she's doing in a local marketing agency. And just the idea of, I mean, you're running your business. Like if you're a soap shop, if you're an antique store, if you're a relatively large ice distributor, like you don't have the time necessarily, or you may not even want to. Honestly, from my perspective, you shouldn't be doing your own advertising. You're going to be wasting time doing that when you could pay other people to leverage their abilities and their strengths to showcase your business even better.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know what it is. I think there may be a perspective for some people that like Facebook should be free advertising, and so they're not willing to fork over the cash to put their message out there. It's almost like they're insulted by that, the idea of spending money. But man, just a few dollars in a local market goes so far in terms of just getting in front of people every day. And so, like I won't discuss numbers or even the company, but we're working with a local company that spends about what most people spend on a nice coffee every day to be in front of pretty much everybody in town, if you look at the statistics. And so, anyway, so that like it's really accessible, it's really affordable right now. And I think that that's where I'm going to be building something right now is a local market. So
what are the strengths of a local market versus going bigger? Like what are some of the things that are drawing you more and more to that?
Well, I think one of the cool things is that they're right there, so you can create video if they're just horrible at creating content.
Yeah.
It's not like pulling teeth over the internet, like, I don't know, point your camera at something, and then, so you can just go out and handle it because they're right here, It's cool too, because then, people trust you and you're accessible and they see you in the supermarket and you connect about ideas. And I think that, kind of the same reason why we have this co-working space and these offices here is collaboration in person, to me, is much more valuable than online. There's some people can do it really well, but I know that if I'm in person with somebody, I will come up with 10 ideas versus one in a vacuum or over Zoom. Cause I don't brainstorm like on the spot very well. So having a meeting to figure out everything in life is kind of hard for me.
Yeah.
But if I'm around people and we're mulling things over and chewing on things and making jokes and all that, that's where ideas come from. So.
Yeah. I really want to kind of get your thoughts on the type of advertising and media that we're starting to get more of, and I think a lot of it's that personal side of things or the creative side of things. Where do you see the value of creative or more personal video projects?
Yeah, so here's the craziest thing. People started to smell advertising a mile away because we're really smart creatures, right? Like we're like, oh, that looks too polished, I'm out, And so it's opened this really cool thing where TikTok influencers are the best way to go because they are creating thumb-stopping content because people are like, oh, do I know that person? Oh, no, I don't. But what's this that they're talking about, right? So like there's this organic thing where people can run a whole media company with their cell phone, right? I mean, obviously you would have a mix of media, like something to show that you're professional, but also a whole bunch of user-generated content and creating videos out of that stuff. So we're in this amazing time where like cool products will come to the top because you won't be limited by like, oh, well, I had a really cool product, but I couldn't afford a glitzy photo shoot for it. We're in this place where people can just like pick up their phone and be like, hey, look at this cool thing that I got, you should get one. Yeah. And that's really where advertising is going.
Advertising without advertising.
Yeah. Like I'll share one story. One of my last companies, we had this, somebody posted just a snapshot of themselves wearing one of our products. And I showed it to my wife. I was like, I don't think I can post this. And she's like, it's not that bad. Just post it, right? And that picture will probably put my kids through college because it's such a successful ad because it doesn't look like an ad, right? Like it looks like their friend from the gym wearing this cool tank top, right? And so yeah, it's really neat. I think that it's more accessible. There's a lot more tools for creatives, and people who are maybe creative, but they don't have deep pockets can still start to get clients and put things out into the world that people care about. So.
I mean, your phone is the most powerful video tool that you have because it's there always with you. Yeah. And I think that's super fascinating. Are you familiar with the YouTuber Mr. Beast?
I am.
So Mr. Beast, if you're listening to this and you don't know, he's the biggest YouTuber, fastest growing. If you've seen this very enthusiastic guy giving away money for free for these gigantic challenges, the Squid Game recreation, that actually got more views than Squid Game itself, which is insane to think about. Yeah. He's got this huge company. He's got several hundred employees now, all through creating content on YouTube. He's got like over 200 million subscribers across all of his platforms. He has the capability to record 4K up to 8K on some cameras, and he only exports in 1080p. Do you want to guess why?
I mean, my hunch is it feels more organic and real. Yeah.
He wants it to feel like it's just a bunch of his buddies with some crappy cameras having some fun. Like that is what he like. That is the epitome. Like we went through, I'd say like 2010 to maybe 2020, maybe something like that, where we had everyone was drawn to the super polished content. And now it's like it's gone in the opposite direction. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And I have to remind myself that, and I think you need to educate people who aren't in the advertising world, because they'll think like they'll see you show up with your phone and they're like, what are you doing? Or, or I'll ask for something, just like point your phone at it and like talk about it and do a video and just talk about this new thing that's going to be there. And people like they push back against that because it doesn't feel professional to them. But where's your massive camera?
Yeah. I mean, really all we're doing in marketing is getting people to know, like, and trust us. Right. And so a personal video like that cuts a lot of, it cuts to the chase, where people can really get a feel for who you are and what you sell and the type of person that, type of interaction they're going to have with you. So I think it's done a lot to, kind of put the marketing world in a more honest space, I think. Yeah.
There's this belief that the broader audience is stupid. They are not. They're incredibly intelligent. They have more information available to them than they've ever had before. And we need to be aware and never take that for granted, that they'll watch it just because they can. Like, no, we're drawn to more stories and more complicated and deep, rich experiences now than we've ever been in terms of our media.
Yeah. Some of the other things too are the ways media has changed. Short form content is king these days. Like people just don't sit down and absorb like minute-long advertising or like 3-minute long videos about stuff too. I mean, it depends on the setting too, but yeah. And I find it even affects my brain.
Yes.
Where if I'm on TikTok too much, I notice that I'm like, your stories become tiresome. I quit. I'm out. It's just a few seconds into it. And so it's really weird. It's what's that saying that said, like, in the future everybody will be famous for 15 minutes. And now it's like 15 seconds. So what that does is it brings the really talented people to the top. It like aggregates this, the really talented people, which can be really intimidating, right? Like, you got to be always creating cool stuff, or you're not going to make it.
And iterating too, because you can't just like, oh, I found this thing that works really well.
Yeah.
You can do it for like 5 times, and by the 7th time, 6th time, you're done. Like, you can't.
Yeah. So yeah, fairly intimidating. Let's stop talking about it.
What's your thought process? Like, new business comes up to you. They want to strategically grow their business. Like, what's that process that you take people through?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of it goes down to what type of person you're talking to. Because there's some people that are like, oh yeah, I love shooting videos. I post them all the time and I get a lot of organic reach out of those. And then there's people who are like, I'm never going to do it. Just, I might be part of a video, maybe, or not, and so you really have to shape the content that you're putting together based on the person. But I think the biggest thing is just that you just have to start getting data on your customers, right? So whether you're posting, like ideally you want to post a bunch, see what is resonating with people, and then go back and reverse engineer of like, okay, how can we turn that piece of content into a cool ad with a call to action, right? So that's typically what I like. What I love to do is just say like, let's see what's already working, and then use that either user generated content or homegrown content to just get in front of more eyeballs.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is, we can create stuff and look at it later and say, what's getting in front of the most people. And we always sort of do like a media death match with the stuff that we do is we put lots of stuff out there and put it against each other and see which one wins. And then the one that wins gets more ad budget than stuff that doesn't. So, yeah.
Which, I mean, when you think about it, it's like, I post it on Instagram and Facebook every day.
Mm-hmm.
What are you posting? Why are you posting it?
Yeah.
Like, you have to ask that question.
Yeah.
Because the belief that posting every day is going to make you successful, that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
Like if you're just posting photos, for sure, that's not true anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and
I think that's why we've been so video focused in this conversation is because all of the platforms are deciding video is king.
It's the
see
thing.
you later photos.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really rare. You have to be really interested in what somebody's posting to, for a text or a picture to get much traction these days, for sure. And so, I mean, in a local market, you can get away with some more just like awareness stuff, right? Like, so if there's 10 different restaurants in our little town and one of them posts all the time, and even if it's not about much, if it's just kind of documenting their experience and you're probably putting just a little tiny bit of ad spend on that to put those interesting things in front of people. It's like when everybody's sitting around thinking about where are we going to eat, it's like a little whisper in their ear, like, Battleborn barbecue, because he posts all the time, and you're like you're gonna end up there because you just saw it. So
I'd say like that's 100% true. Like in the local market, you need more awareness than you do call to actions almost. Like there's definitely that side of things. It should definitely be a part of the strategy, but you need a lot of more of that awareness of like it's almost like a spray and pray method of okay, let's put all these things out there. Let's put a few photos or videos on Facebook, Instagram, where have you. Okay, we've got that out there. Okay, let's also show up to these events, or let's sponsor that event, or let's be aware. You need to have this more awareness around.
Yeah. Well, and I think with a local ad campaign too, just a few dollars goes so far. So if you are the person who isn't going to post every day and you're not going to start showing up in everybody's feed with really great creative stuff, like maybe work on getting like one piece of really great content and then just put a few dollars on it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck versus if you just know, you're not that person, just get one cool thing and put a few dollars on it. And, I see people putting a lot of money on, not that I have anything against print media, and for some verticals it definitely works, but they don't bat an eye about spending $500 to be on the front page of a local publication, but spending $500 on Facebook ads is like, are you kidding me? No way. I
can't touch that.
No, yeah, like that. They just don't see the value in it, but it's so much more powerful than they could ever possibly imagine. So yeah,
that's a very interesting topic in and of itself, of the idea of like the death of physical media, and also the nostalgia around it, because they're like you said, there's verticals that work really well in it.
Yeah, and I think there's never been a form of mass communication that went away, right? So there's always going to be a place for something, right? Because when radio came out, they said, oh, well, newspapers are done now. And then when TV came out, like, who would listen to the radio, right? But here we are. There's still various forms of it. I mean, you could call Clubhouse a version of radio. It's just kind of radio on your phone,
or podcast, you could say it's like a little flavor of radio that you can on demand. So I mean, all of these things are still going to make sense well into the future, print media, all of those things. But you just got to see, like, it's, that's the thing. It's like, what's working now, so video is working now. It's the quick turnaround. Like you may, like in the past, you've been able to put an ad out and like, okay, we'll see how it does in a month. And now it's like, if it's not good in the same day that you put it out, it's time to adjust. Yeah. Like on YouTube, creating content there, like if a video doesn't go well, I change the title and I change the thumbnail within the same day. Yep. I've seen other people in the same hour. If it doesn't do well in the first hour, thumbnail and the title changes. Yep. And then that could change 3 or 4 times. So every time it changes, it shows it to a new audience. Yep. And says, oh, they're going to click through that. Click through rate and average view duration are the two things on YouTube that everyone needs.
Yep.
If that's your side of things. And then just kind of like eyeballs is another side of things too. Like you can get a lot of views, but also what does that say in terms of your shifting into those like, oh yeah, a bunch of people saw this ad. It's like, yes, that's good.
Yeah. But did they buy anything? Or yeah, right. For sure. And that's the cool thing about Facebook advertising is that you can optimize for different results, right? Like, so yeah, you can optimize for web clicks, but they're going to optimize literally for people who click to websites more often than other people, not necessarily people who care at all about buying your thing, right? So yeah, I think with a lot of this stuff, like content and advertising and all of that, it's just going through the paces of doing a ton of it, right? Because then back to what you were saying, I heard this guy, he posted the same TikTok video like 6 different edits before it finally took off, right? But he knew that the content, like that's going to go viral, right? Yeah. So the more you do these things, the more you recognize like, oh, that's going to be huge, or I can take that little snippet and that will get results and stuff like that. So yeah, volume is key and just takes time and staying on top of things. So
how are you handling the troubling, almost political side of things of like Facebook? Like a lot of people, whether they love them or hate them, they are definitely not the greatest company, but they also like, I mean, when you advertise locally, it's on Facebook because that's the most impactful. That's what people are going to be on. Like how do you use this tool, but also kind of like keep in the back of your mind, like there's privacy concerns, there's the global impact of all these social media platforms. Like what are some of the things that you think of?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me, I mean, really, Apple put a lot, and I mean a lot, of small businesses out of business when they changed their the iOS 14 update came out. And basically what that means in like really easy terms is that Facebook can't track you as well as they used to.
I like how you said as well.
Yes, I mean they're definitely still tracking a lot of stuff. They still got tons of data, but if I was talking to you about buying a jump rope right now, it used to like be that it would show up on your phone in the same setting, and that still happens to people somewhat depending on what settings they have and what they've approved Facebook to do. And so I think people are becoming more and more aware of what this technology that rolls around in their pocket is able to do, and people are becoming more picky about what they're allowing. So in my mind, it's kind of like the free market is going to decide what's acceptable and what is not, right? So when people get super mad, you'll see Mark Zuckerberg in front of senators and Congress people explaining himself, right? And they'll have to change things and they'll make laws and stuff like that. And so I think it's good for people to stay up on it, to know what your phone can do. And be comfortable with whatever settings they have there. But for me personally, it's like, nobody's forcing you to have an iPhone in your pocket, and it's on you, especially now. A lot of this stuff's come out. It's like, do your research and get to a level of comfort that you have. Yeah. And then, especially for a local market, it really is like owning having a TV station that's really affordable to advertise on, and you're just putting your video message in front of tons of people. So that seems like a weird, pretty okay thing for me to do.
Yeah. It's a weird kind of like dichotomy of like, yes, I may have problems with it, but it's like if you have like a really sharp tool that works great, can really make you a lot faster in your business, but sometimes it cuts you. You're probably still going to use that tool, right? And you probably should still use that tool, but you also need to be aware of the ways that it's going to maybe impact your business or impact you as a person. Because I've turned off notifications on almost all of my social platforms because you're just sucking way too much time.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but on TikTok, if you watch too long, somebody comes on and says, hey, hang on, get a drink. I'm like, wow, TikTok is warning me that I'm using this too much. I must be thoroughly addicted to it, right? And so yeah, it's dangerous for sure to like live your life online like that. But and here's the other piece of it too, is people are like, oh, I hate, it's an invasion of privacy to get these ads. Like I've talked to my friend about something and now I'm getting ads about it and stuff like that. It's like, well, Facebook has to create revenue, right? Mm-hmm. And so if I know that and I know they're going to advertise, then I don't want advertisements in my feed about push-up bras, right? Like I want advertisements in my feed about the things that I care about, like CrossFit or whatever. Like I want it to be tailored to me. And so there is an aspect of like a lot of these are people, just advertisers trying to make money, and Facebook has this really advanced algorithm that can put those things in front of you and help you discover them, So out of the it's going to be, you're going to see advertisements anyway. You might as well have some tailored to you, right?
As another one of those things, it's like, if I have ads, I would like, when you buy something on Amazon and then you get an ad for it later, like that's super annoying. I just bought this. Obviously, you know this. If you've ever used like something in like, I don't know, like an incognito or like one of the, is it Brave? I think is one of the like,
or like DuckDuckGo. Yeah, right.
Those ones, they don't necessarily have as much, depending on which one that you use, the tracking or the hiding cookies. Like it's a much different experience because you aren't getting that tailoring. And like Google's great. I mean, they've had 1995 is when they started, I think.
Oh gosh, I don't even
almost
know.
30 years. 30 years of experience with this.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and they're coming out with new stuff all the time, new products, advertising products and stuff. So, it'll be interesting. And here's the reality. I don't know if we're boring listeners or not, but the Apple came out with iOS 14 because for sure they're building their own ad network.
Well, it's already coming out. Like they've announced that they will have. That's going to be a big part of their services business.
Right, absolutely.
And then that opens a whole container of like, oh, you shut down Facebook's, but now that it's okay that you're doing it?
Yeah, exactly. And so they like kind of, people put them on a pedestal because they care so much about privacy. And I'm like, no, they don't. They just...
They want the data.
Yes. Yes, for sure. So
I don't want to win. I want you to fail.
Yes. At least that's where we're at right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's super interesting time for small businesses, big businesses, medium-sized businesses on the changing front in terms of media. Kind of close this podcast episode out, like why Fremont County? Switching gears entirely, like we have all these discussions, but what you could obviously do stuff anywhere. You've done stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
But why Fremont County?
Yeah. I'm going to give you a really... like an answer that you may have to cut out. So when I was a kid, I had this thought. I was like, I never want to live anywhere that I can't pee off my own front porch. And so obviously I live out in the country. I could technically do that, but it's more of a metaphor for like, I love being in a small place. And just a side note, I don't think you can do that within city limits. So
allegedly you could. In theory, anyway, I've never done it.
Yeah. So I love that, I just love small towns. I love, the closeness of being able to know a select few people. I love being able to go to the grocery store and see somebody I know every time I go in there. And then I love that technology has enabled people to do what we do, right? Back to like having a sound design agency with a dial-up connection and stuff, like that was like, I was sort of on the forefront of like, you can have like a tech-enabled thing like out in the middle of nowhere, And so I've been
tell me a story like you would create something and then you time it for while you were asleep?
Yes, just upload it while I go to bed, right? Or I would drive to town to get a higher speed connection, or something like that. And so, I've been, as soon as it was possible, I was like, okay, I'm out of here. And every time I go to a big city, like, if I go up to Denver or whatever, I'm like, every time I'm reminded why I don't live there. And it's also stronger every single time. Like every time I go fly somewhere, fly out of DIA or whatever, I'm like, I don't know how people even do this, you know? And so that may be just me and my own pushback against it. But I just love having some elbow room, and you get both. You get elbow room plus closeness of relationships by seeing the same people in your community multiple times and having a relationship with them over the course of decades. I mean, obviously you can do those things in Denver, but it's I feel like the community is lacking, or it changes because people change neighborhoods.
And it's a different flavor too. Yeah, because like there's a lot more of the support almost. Like you have a lot more people initially invested into you in rural, which is good. Yeah. Sometimes, they saw you in your underwear. I definitely not peeing off of the front porch.
Definitely not. Yeah. But it probably made anyone listening to this, like considering moving to rural, was like, oh man,
wait a second.
These country bumpkins, I can't hang. But
well, Rob Brown has a saying. He was part of OEdit, and they're having this conversation. What is rural? What is this? And this is like his first meeting. They realize he's there from rural, and they all turn to him. They're like, hey, Rob, what's rural? And he's like, now, this may offend you, but rural is where you and your dog pee on the same tree. That's the definition.
Wow. I can see how that works out. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're like, oh, what is rural? Is this rural? Is this rural? Like, is it this amount of people? Is it this amount of people? Yeah. And he's like, this is honestly like, it's more of like a mindset almost. It's a state of mind, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and back to Fremont too. Like, I think that there's a lot of buzz here. So you get a really good mix of people who want to see cool things happen here in terms of like starting neat business, like we've got robots in the front lawn being tested to weed agriculture and stuff. Like all this weird stuff is happening, but we're also kind of in the middle of, we're out in a more sparsely populated place, and you can get out and be alone somewhere. So it's
the outdoor activities too. Like that's what I love so much.
Yeah. And I took it totally for granted when I first moved here. I would travel almost every weekend. And cause it wasn't a major part of my life, but now it's like, I just love that I can go look at a tree every once in a while, like really easily. Like when I was getting back into shape recently, I just would run away from the office, and in 10 minutes, I'm in literally the middle of nowhere, and I get to run through a cool little neighborhood on my way there, and so, it's an amazing place, and you don't have to sacrifice the possibility of doing big things to live in a place where you have a strong, tight-knit, small community. So
it's great. And you get to work with some awesome people.
Yeah. And podcast every once in a while.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks for hopping on the podcast. We'll link everybody down to all of your stuff in the description, which you can find on ruralreboot.com. As always, thanks for listening. Make sure you're subscribed on all podcast platforms and our YouTube channel, FEDC Texter.